So I know some of you guys are already back to school, some of you guys are not back to school yet, and it's been very interesting. I've been back to school for probably almost a month, which is crazy, about 3 weeks. And we are already seeing some more urgent things showing up on campus. This is a little early. I usually say things get pretty rough around the end of September, early October. Um, and so some of the things I actually wanted to talk about today are just things that are kind of coming up technology wise. I know, Sarah, we didn't really talk about this, but as things come up, it's just things that I know that you guys are going to be battling it with it as well. Um, so recently there was an article came out about a teenager that ended up committing suicide in Arizona. And when he went to talk to his chat GBT was actually giving him advice about how to keep a suicide a secret, how to go through the process, and even offered to write the suicide note. So one of the big issues is a lot of people, I mean, ChatGPT is my friend. I'm not saying I don't use AI. Like for you guys that are doing note taker, I'm all about it. It's been a saving grace for me. But what is happening when kids go and talk to their chat GBT, it's literally learning your preferences. It's like an algorithm, right? So if they know what you want to hear, that's really what it's telling people. Okay. And so that's something that people are like, I don't need to go to a counselor. I'm going to talk to chat GBT. I literally have had a client that said, well, cause I was just talking to chat GBT. I almost want to say, give me your phone, right? Because it is going to guide you on what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. Does that make sense to everybody? The difference between what you want to hear and what you need to hear, right? Now, the funny, crazy thing is somebody literally posted on social media, well, it's not ChatGPT's fault. You're right. It's not ChatGPT's fault. But for kids in despair, they will listen to anybody or anything, especially if it agrees with them. Okay. So just kind of, you can throw up your hands. How many of you know that people are using ChatGPT as their counselor? Okay. So yeah, some of you guys may not have heard that yet, but if you haven't, it's probably going to be something that is definitely going to be probably on campuses a little bit more than it was even a year ago. Okay. Um, one of the other things that is showing up is a thing called sextortion. And some of you are probably like, what the heck is sextortion? This is when people will ask for nudes or pictures of you, and then they'll use AI to alter it, and then they will threaten to send it out to people. Okay. And they will threaten for money. I've actually had this happen to one of my good friend's sons. He just sent a picture of his face, and it came from somebody that was a friend of a friend on social media, but they weren't really connected, right? So those are other things that are happening social media wise to just kind of keep your heads up and maybe communicating with your teammates about is, hey, you need to be very cautious about what you send via text or social media, because if you get into that situation, they're going to try to extort you for money, right? And say, well, send it to these people, send it to your parents. You know, some of you guys that are in internships or want to go on to military careers, they might go, well, we're going to send it here and here and here, right? So these are conversations that are important to have within your leadership groups and your teams, because a lot of people aren't even aware that these things are happening until it's too late, right? So these are some like more media topics that are happening right now. Um, then this week was super easy, right? In the world of social media and media in general. So with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, social media has blown up, right? And a lot of people are losing their jobs for certain things that they're posting. Okay. So this is something that people need to be aware of, that when they go and post things, there are consequences. Yep, free speech, all about it. First Amendment, rock it. But now people are surprised that when they say certain things that they're losing their jobs. Okay. So how many of you have, like, there have been arguments on your social media this week about this topic? About, yeah, about good versus evil and right versus left and Christian versus non-Christian, right? Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty hard to not be exposed to it in some capacity. Has anybody had to like have real conversations with people this week? And feel free to like actually talk if you want to. Has anybody had a hard conversation with somebody this week? Okay, which great, right? How many of you are nervous about going into the school year knowing this is kind of the state of the world right now? Okay. Emily, I'm going to pick on you because you were brave enough to raise your hand. What makes you nervous about going into this upcoming year?
Um, just like me being a freshman and like my first year of college, and I'm kind of seeing how the world works now,
Hmm.
and like this being like thrown at me, and like I'm sure a lot of people agree with that. So,
Yeah. Does anybody kind of have those feelings of like, I'm just a 20 something trying to survive college, let alone watching the world like restructure right in front of me? Does that cause any anxiety for anybody? Anybody want to admit it and have a conversation? Okay, Cora, you get to go. I see you nodding your head.
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like something that not a lot of people want to talk about, but obviously I think a lot of people get anxiety from it because then you like go to school and you're like, is the person next to me like gonna get like upset with my beliefs or like little things like that whenever like everybody can believe what they want to believe, you just have to respect it type thing. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's interesting, and I'm not comparing these two events, but it's kind of ironic that 9/11, the anniversary was the day after, because during 9/11, there was a lot of those feelings too, a lot of anxiety and fear just through the United States, right? Because we didn't know who believed what, and if we said certain things or what the ramifications were going to be. And I think that's a major player in like just general anxiety. You guys have anxiety about your own individual stuff, right? Pretty much everybody does the general worries and the general fears, but you guys are also living in the age during college where this is even more amped up, right? So I think this is actually probably a good time to have that conversation of how do you have conversations without everything imploding and blowing up, right? Because a lot of us have conversations out of emotion, right? All of us have wanted to get on Twitter or X, sorry, get on X or Instagram or Snap and like blast people, right? We've all had that. And if you say, I've never felt that, you're all lying. Like, yeah, right. We all want that, right? Because we're fighting for justice, we're fighting for these things. And it's almost like we need that relief of anxiety. I need that release, right? But then we also realize, what does that do to our relationships? Is that going after somebody worth it? Right? It's kind of like a coach. Sometimes we just want to yell at our players, but then we realize that's going to do more damage than positive. Okay. And so we have to evaluate, is that what we want to do? So, how do we have a conversation? So, Cora, you put it perfectly. Like, we're afraid of what if the person next to me doesn't share my beliefs and they find out? How is that going to go about? Right? Okay. Has anybody had to have that conversation with somebody in their life? I'm like, I can't tell your faces. Anybody? Okay. So, I just went through this with my childhood best friend, and she kept posting all this stuff. And I finally said, what's with all the posts, dude? And she was like, well, I just want to know why people voted the way they did. And I said, well, you never asked me why I voted for. And you've known me since you were two. And it was interesting because once I told her why I voted for who I voted for, she actually got off social media. Now, I don't think that's because of what I said, maybe, but I think she probably kept in perspective of, is this worth ending relationships for? Right. And I think, Cora, like you said, like we need to be able to talk about these things because what happens when everybody goes silent, guys? Is silence a good way to manage it or a negative way to manage it? It's a negative, right? So if any of you guys ever like listen to any snippets that Charlie Kirk even said, one of his big things is let's talk, he wanted to talk about things even if people didn't agree, right? And did everybody agree? No, half the world doesn't agree half the time. But the big thing is if we go silent is when things get rough and scary, right? So if you have a conversation with somebody, so like Justin, if you and I are having a conversation, sitting in, our I always say on the stairs in my dorm in my house that I lived in college and having this conversation, and you and I were talking about politics and we didn't agree. And I knew, let's say I knew we didn't agree before we had that conversation, but politics came up. I'd be like, hey, Justin, you are such a valuable person to me, and I love having these conversations, but I don't want this to divide our relationship. Right? I actually just was visiting with one of my good friends, and it's funny, we both majored in history and political science, and we always have those conversations knowing that we're on different sides, but I want to hear where your belief system came from. Not in a mean way, but like tell me, what your beliefs are, because I want to understand and be educated, right? So look at it as a place of curiosity instead of a place of judgment, right? For you guys that have seen Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental, right? That is going to be one of the most integral parts in any relationship you have. Choose to be curious about somebody instead of judgmental. Okay. That is going to be one of the biggest connectors, especially during this really difficult time when everybody is kind of defensive or scared to actually have conversations, right? Because no matter what people believe in, everybody wants there to be peace, right? At least hopefully. But right now, there's that kind of undercurrent of what is going to happen next. Okay. The big key is, guys, you can control how you have conversations, how you listen, right? How you react and build friendships. You can't control how people are going to react and respond to you. Okay. So through this really difficult time, it's important to, as I say, be calm when you talk, be sure to listen, let people know how important they are to you, right? And even if it's a teammate that you don't know very well, they're still going to be somebody of value. They're your teammate. So Emily, what sport do you play, bud?
Softball.
Okay. I knew I liked you. What school are you at?
Baker University.
Okay. So even if your senior comes up and has a conversation with you, just because you're a freshman and new doesn't mean you are not of value, even if she's not close to you. Okay. And Emily, on the flip side, for you guys that are young, just because you're young doesn't mean that you aren't allowed to be part of a conversation. Okay. Good cultures of teams allow everybody to be part of the conversation. That's really, really important. Okay. Are there things that you have seen on your campus that you want to throw in? You can always throw in a question, or you can put it in chat if you want to. So one of the things that I think we always are super hyper fixated on is suicide prevention, which is very, very important. But one of the main things that I've been talking a lot about, and I know I work on this with my team all the time, is something that I call recovery mindset. Okay. So what recovery mindset is really dealing with when things go wrong or things fail or things don't go as planned or somebody hurts your feelings or you make a mistake, right? All of us are in hobbies that we fail all the time. Okay. When you sign up for sports, you sign up for a hobby that fails. But so much of our mental wellness is based off of playing time, if our coach likes us or not, if our parents are happy with us in our sport world. And a lot of it comes from, probably most of it is our opinion of ourselves. Because one of the things I'm seeing in the world of just people in general, especially sports, is a lot of self-hate, right? And some of you are thinking like, yeah, I probably tell myself I'm horrible and I hate myself every single day. That happens a lot, especially in individual sports. Okay. So what does recovery mindset look like? So I was Emily, I was a softball player. I'm a softball coach now. And I coach baseball. I coach 16-year-old baseball because I'm nuts. But when we talk about recovery mindset, it's you make a mistake. Okay. You accept that that mistake was made. You evaluate and you problem solve, like, how do I not make that mistake again? And then you implement that into whatever comes next. Because so often we get wrapped up in the failure or the misstep or somebody's judgment or opinion. We get stuck there. We can never accept that that happened. figure out what we need to do to prevent that from happening again, and then implement it, right? So when we go with recovery mindset, it gives us a form of action. And as athletes, we like to have skills that we can execute right away. This is something that you can take immediately. So Emily, I'm sorry you got picked on. This is what happens when you're the first kid that's brave enough to talk about stuff. But you get up and it's your first at bat and you swing at a high pitch and you feel like an absolute idiot, because we all do when we swing at rise balls that we shouldn't swing at, right? Now you have two choices to make. You can either go, wow, I'm an idiot, I shouldn't have swung at that. How do I make the adjust? But it happened. This is what I need to do the adjustment. And then you make good contact. Or you can say, I'm a failure and I'm horrible. Use that emotion and then probably have a bad at bat, right? So Emily, if you could choose, which one would you choose? A or B?
A.
A, right? How many of us usually always choose A? Yeah, nobody's raising their hands. Okay, Kinley, I'm going to pick on you because you're down in the corner, so I get to. Kinley, why do you think we always usually pick B even though A is an option?
B is always easier to do.
Why is it easier?
To be A, you have to intentionally choose to to react that way or to respond that way. I feel like B is what more of a reaction, which is always a first thought for most of us.
Totally. What sport do you play?
Softball.
Okay. No, I think that's totally true, because one of them requires you to change and choose different behavior, right? Change is extremely difficult. And so when we're saying, hey, you need to change your approach to something, a lot of people are like, dude, change is uncomfortable. I don't even know how to do it. So I rather go, like I say, you go with kind of the emotion instead of, I'm going to grab hold of this, commit to the change and then execute it. And here's the thing is the best athletes can do this, right? So I love the Oklahoma Sooners. And I was watching a bat with a girl named Melissa Brito, who's one of the best hitters in college. She swung at a pitch that I was like, oh, Brito, I'm so embarrassed that you even swung at that, right? And she went and talked to her coach, came back, made the adjustment, and hit a 2-run bomb, right? The great athletes are not defined by their failure, right? They choose to learn, accept, problem solve, and apply. That's what great athletes do. The thing is, guys, this is true on anything. So think about something that you made a mistake this last week. All of us have made mistakes this week, okay? So if you, how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, you can share if you want, how many of you have not been okay and accepted that you made that mistake? I'm guessing some of you have lost sleep over the mistake that you made, because you're thinking, who did I tick off? Or how is that going to impact coach's perspective of me, or my boyfriend, or my girlfriend, or my friends, or my parents' perspective on me? Think about how much energy that takes from you, how much sleep that takes from you, right? How much brain space that takes from you versus, you know what? I said something really stupid to my coach and I probably shouldn't have said that. So I need to accept that I made the mistake. How am I going to problem solve? I'm going to go meet coach in his office and say, you know what, coach, I should have just listened and followed your directions. Okay. Which one is actually going to build a better relationship with your coach? Connecting with your coach about your mistake and owning it, or losing sleep all week over it? Megan, you're right in front of me, so you get to choose. Yeah.
Especially with the coach, not losing sleep over it.
Yeah. How many of you think walking into coach and saying that is easy? None of you have that super easy coach? I see one of my favorite softball coaches that is on this call. I should be like, Ottawa, is that how you run? But those are things, guys, that you need to take into account, because how much anxiety leads to when you don't just go and face things head on. A lot. And I know if a kid was willing to come and talk to me, they would gain them a lot of respect from me. Okay. So how does this apply even on the bigger spectrum? So usually when I'm talking about this, and I'll talk to people that maybe employ people, I said, if you were hiring somebody and they could do this well, right? They could accept, problem solve, and apply. Would that be a major bonus when you hire somebody? And every single one of them says yes. So, Sarah, if you were hiring somebody, would you want somebody that was good at recovering from failure?
110%.
So, in your world, what would that like? How would that be a benefit to you as an employer, somebody that you oversee people?
Well, again, one, we're all humans, so we make mistakes. And so it's also a resiliency piece, right? You can come back and continue to do your job and do your job well, even though that you knew that you made this mistake. It can also be a big growth opportunity. Hey, I messed up. I want to do better. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to note this. I'm going to, do what I need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again. Again, if it does happen, we're still human and it's okay. But again, we continue to be resilient and we continue to move on and continue to problem solve. Because it's really hard to continue to work with someone that just kind of gives up on themselves or doesn't know how to move past an issue or a problem.
You said that perfectly. Absolutely, right? Because we do we when we do not manage those things well or quickly, there's going to be all this lost time that things can be productive. And that's one of the reasons, like in the world of athletics, urgency is always a major factor, because if we're not practicing to the best of our ability, we're not going to perform to the best of our ability, right? And that's true in the workforce. That's true in relationships as well, right? Because I had asked coaches or some players many years ago, and they had a very difficult coach that probably never admitted he was wrong ever. And I said, guys, what would it mean to you if you went to coach and said, Coach, like, we're having a really hard time with like all the yelling, right? I said, what if coach said, you're right, I'm going to change that, versus him just blowing you off? I go, how would that change your relationship? They're like, our respect would grow for them so much by accepting their role in it and making the change, right? And that's the thing is, I bet most of you would say if your coaches or bosses or parents actually accepted their role in something that was negative and made the change, your respect for them would grow astronomically, right? So as leaders, that is a very important thing. Because think about most of the people you deal with, you probably could think right now, you're like, yeah, my parent never says I'm sorry or never says that I'm wrong, right? Okay, that could be a coach, that could be anybody in your life. How does that make you feel after they don't take ownership? Justin, I'm going to pick on you because I saw your face like kind of smile when I was like, oh, you have that one person. All of us have that person, right? So Justin, when you've been through that situation with somebody, what has been kind of your mental response, or how's that made you feel or think after somebody says, no, this is all about you, it's not about me?
Kind of just like they don't really care about me or the situation. They kind of care about themselves and how it makes them look or feel. So they're trying to put all the blame on me for the situation.
Yeah, right. And so does that make you respect somebody or want to be connected to that person, or does it make you almost put your walls up more?
I probably put my walls up more. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And guys, one of the things, and it's funny, when I said I coach 16U boys, today was our first practice. And they all hang out at my house all the time, but I've never been their coach. And I said, guys, one of our things is going to work on you being able to communicate with each other. And because when things get difficult, it's important to be able to feel like your walls aren't up, right? And I know guys, male sports probably struggles with this a little bit more, but that's why being able to take ownership and having those conversations is actually going to make your team so much stronger. It's going to make your relationships, whether friendship or romantic relationships, your work relationships, all of them, because so many of us can't take criticism and own it, but that just leads to more distance relationships, right? And so that's why it's really important to be like, hey, I accept that I made a mistake. The other thing too is it's going to let you sleep better. Why? Because three main topics usually that I hear from athletes of why they don't sleep. One, I'm never going to be good enough. I hear that from more football players than any other thing. I'm never going to be good enough, right? Two, did I say something to piss somebody off? Did I make somebody angry? Okay. Three, how am I ever going to get all my homework done? And that's their main thing. So if you can accept that, hey, maybe you made a mistake or you weren't on top of things or you maybe have said something wrong, that's probably literally going to let you sleep easier because you go, you know what? I did make a mistake. I said something. I'm going to go and talk to that person because I want to make sure that our friendship stays connected instead of disconnected, right? Because guys, loneliness is one of the biggest culprits of mental health. Cameron, I cannot believe you have a corgi. I'm like so all about it right now. Cameron, does your corgi have an awesome name? Where'd you go? Cameron, what is your corgi's
Her
name?
name is Tilly.
Oh my gosh, I love corgis. But that being said, kind of a natural, kind of coming back to this beginning of the year. Emily, I hope that you are not lonely at school. Any of you, the rest of you freshmen? Anybody else? Okay. So guys, all of you upperclassmen or even sophomores, think about what it is to be the new kid on the block. I just had a client sitting here and she goes off to Oregon State in a week and she goes, I've never been alone like this before, right? Think about what it was like the first couple of weeks when you're in the dorms. I remember thinking, if this is what college is, I don't want to be here, even with teams. So be on top of grabbing your teammates, okay? When you go back to your leadership groups, make sure that they are aware, hey, you know what? We need to be proactive in helping new kids to campus, transfers, whichever, battle loneliness, okay? Because it may not have hit yet, but usually when the weather gets worse and the honeymoon of school is over, which is going to happen a little bit before Halloween, loneliness and depression can set in, okay? So even if you're just sitting there doing nothing, you might go, you know what? I'm going to go and grab all the freshmen in the dorms and we're going to go get froyo. You may not think that's a big deal, but as a freshman, that can be a lifesaver, right? Because freshmen think they're not important. Nobody cares. I'm just a freshman. Nobody's going to listen to me. And I just want to go home. Any of that ring true, Emily? Our poor little freshman? So yeah, because Emily, what would it mean if an upperclassman literally just knocked on your door out of the blue and said, let's go, we're going to Froyo, get in my car?
I think it would be really cool.
So that's the thing is those moments, guys, as leaders may not be like a big moment to you, but they are going to be huge moments for underclassmen that need those things to happen. Okay. So be watchful of all your junior rangers. Okay. Seniors, I know that you are also under a new level of stress because you're trying to figure out what you're going to be when you grow up. Okay. So know that it will all work out. Transitions are hard, but that's what's great about being in an athletic department. You have people to help support you. Ask the questions about life after college now. Okay. Sarah also will always give you my number and you can always talk to me about it or Sarah about it because I think that's what, as seniors, that's the biggest fear of, oh crap, no, I really have to survive on my own. And that leads to high levels of anxiety of kiddos in their senior year. Okay. So I know I just got to point out all these fun things that you get to deal with. And we haven't even talked about sports or performance or any of those things, right? But these are kind of the main, a lot of the main things and some of, using that skill of, hey, accept, problem solve, and then go and apply what I'm going to do is going to be a game changer for you. Okay. Instead of the constant beating yourself up, right? Or the constant I failed. It's going to be, hey, I did mess up. It's cool. How do I adjust? And then I'm going to get better. That literally should be the mantra of sport, right? Sarah, do you have anything that you're like, hey, can we cover this?
I think it, for those that were logging on for this topic, I think even if you're a senior, right, once the honeymoon phase of sports and life and orientation and all the other things that wear off, I think a lot of times we feel anxious and we don't know why. And so a lot of times it's because everything's starting to hit us again. So whether you're new on campus or you're getting ready to graduate or you're a junior and you're going to be playing a lot this year, or whatever it is. And so I think that's why I love this topic. I love that Coach Cause is with us today to have this conversation with all of you, because I know it is a very difficult time. And so it's always important to remember to take care of yourself, take care of others, take care of those that are around you on your team and your athletic department. So I think this is a really important topic that sometimes we just don't think about in the beginning of the year, because it's a mad dash to get, our lives oriented around us with everything that we have going on.
You guys, one thing, and this is still a very big misconception. I actually had a parent say this to me because her son is interested in recruiting, so he's a junior in high school. And I said, well, he can just come to my office, but he still thinks that if he walks in my office that he needs a head adjustment. And I'm like, well, you're a long distance runner. Of course you do. It's like one of the most mental sports there is, right? It's one of the most mentally demanding sports there is. So the thing is, a lot of people think, well, if I go and get help, then that means that I messed up, or they put all the images in their, in their head of that being bad. But look at it this way, guys. You softball players probably spend more time making your wrist strong than you do your brain strong. That makes zero sense to me, right? We spend all the time in the training room training our body parts, but we don't spend any time training the body part that controls everything else, right? The other thing too is, guys, we don't want to get to crisis mode. We want to jump on things ahead of time. I've literally had clients that go, hey, I just know that if I'm going to be really good this year, that I need to talk to you now. They didn't have a problem. They just wanted to talk to me before things got to be too much, right? And it's a lot easier to be, dishing stuff off your plate in the beginning instead of getting to a point that recovery is really difficult, okay? So as leaders, and this is one of the things, and I'll put a plug in for us, Sarah. So we're going to be launching some trainings in the next couple months, right? And these trainings are going to go from commissioners and ADs to student athletes and everybody in between. Because one of the things about the mental health phenomenon is that it needs to be a culture, a whole department-wide accepted topic, right? And it's not that you can't talk about it, but that it's just part of what you do. So you as ASA, that's something that you need to start putting into your departments of, this is just what we talk about. It's okay to talk about this. It's not something that's off limits, right? So when you talk with your leaders, the people that you answer to, it's important to say, hey, I really want this to be part of our school, that talking about mental health is talked about just like we talk about going to the training room. Right? Because once those walls get broken down, the whole thing about stigma, it literally just disappears, right? Because my schools that have embraced that, like there's just more of a calm in the department than always the anxious, we got to put out fires, right? And so I would really recommend you talking to your powers that be and saying, hey, we really want this to be part of our culture, of our department, and of our individual teams. Okay?
Coach Paz, can I ask a question? I think
Anything.
people will always say, yes, awareness is great. And I agree, awareness. But I think we are all generally aware that mental health is something that we should focus on. So can you give them example of, say, a coach is like, okay, I'm on board. What does that look like? How can we implement this into our regular culture? Can you give an idea what that could look like?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to pick on one of my buddies that's a soccer coach, and he's like hilarious. I love him. And, he's super sarcastic, and usually when I meet with his teams, I'll like be bopping in his office and he'll be like, okay, hit me with it. And so the great thing about him is he wants to sit and listen to what is the concern of his student athletes are, right? So lots of coaches will say, well, I have an open door, but how many of you are going, yeah, right, that is not real, right? So even explain to people, this is what open door policy should look like, right? It should be, hey, you know what, coach, like I'm really struggling with this, and this, and I don't really know what to do with this. And it could be, coach, I'm struggling with our relationship. I feel really disconnected, right? So it's open door policy both parties should bring humility into the room, right? And how do we solve this issue? And guys, once again, playing time is one of the biggest issues all the time. So if an athlete comes in and says, hey, coach, like, I'm not getting very much playing time. I would love to know what to do. That's a common question. But the other thing is an athlete that doesn't hear what they want to hear also needs to be accepting of, this is my role. And I would always teach them to ask a coach, how can I contribute? Because playing time and contribution is not the same thing. Okay? Because I have players that contribute a ton that don't play a lot. I have players that are great athletes that make my team a nightmare. Right? So I would change the mentality of with your athletes, how can I contribute? And teaching and talking to your teammates about your contribution is is of value, right? So that's another thing is your contribution to this team is the value, not your minutes, right? Because some of you guys have rosters that are 3 times the size of starting lineups, right? The other thing too, and one of my teams, they make me laugh because they're like, cause we get made fun of for being vulnerable. I'm like, yeah, but you guys have a lot of rings. So it's fine that you're vulnerable. But what made them willing to be vulnerable is because when we talked about that strength and relationship of a program is what is going to lead to winning. And so they're like, okay, we're going to try that. And then it worked. And then they continue to choose things to stay connected, whether it's like, hey, I'm going to share what's going on in my life. I'm going to take ownership when I really screw up, right? Being vulnerable is difficult, okay? Because it makes us all feel raw and freak out. Now, here's the thing with coaches. A lot of coaches won't ever talk about their lives with their players. And this is a fine balance for coaches of sharing their life, but not being your buddy, okay? And so even saying to coach, like, coach, do you have experience? Or even going to your coach and say, coach, it's okay to share, some of your experiences in your life because that makes you more human. Right? That's one of the reasons I love my soccer coach guy. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I know all the craziness, that's going on in his world. Right? But it brings out his humanity. Okay. So that's even sitting down with coach. Hey, coach, how can we make our team more connected? Okay. I would ask a coach, do you ever feel disconnected from us? I bet nobody ever asked a coach that question. And I know as a coach, I feel days that I'm like, dude, I don't even know what's going on with my group right now. So maybe the question is, do you ever feel disconnected from us? And how could we be helpful in that? Dude, now I want to go, I want players to go ask that question. So it's, as I say, it's those type of things, right? The other thing too is reminding coaches that sometimes rest and recovery is more important than practice. Why is this? Okay. Because every coach is going to say, I can't sacrifice 10 minutes or a day of practice. But then I have coaches that tell me, how do I get them to go to bed? So I would sit down with coach and say, hey, coach, what do you think are the best plans for rest and recovery? See what they say, right? Because you guys might be the ones that say, hey, finals are coming up this week. Is there any time we can make some adjustments? Because I feel that we need to make some adjustments to have the most efficient practices we can have. Okay. One of the best things that I ever heard, and this came from my kids when they were like 6 and 7 and going to their little church group. And our youth pastor, our little kids pastor used to make the kids line up on the wall and she'd have them ask questions. And I was always like, what is going on? Like, just let the kids in the room. So I pulled her aside. I said, Joy, what's with the line? Like, just let them in. And she goes, we have 5 intentional questions. And they would ask them before the kids would come in the room. And she goes, you wouldn't believe what you would learn about what's going on in those kids' lives, even at little age. So I started doing this when I coached high school for the first time. And 3 days a week, I'd set up my assistants and myself, and the kids could choose which one of us to talk to. It probably took 10 minutes. And I didn't know if the kids liked it. I thought maybe they were just amusing me. But one day, one of my kids walks in, and we weren't going to do check-ins that day. She literally goes, "Are we doing check-ins today?" I was like, "Whoa, dude, bring it down a notch." She goes, "I have to talk about." And I go, "Oh, I thought you guys were just being nice and like just doing it because I asked you to do it." And then I realized for those kids to be able to kind of unload some stuff before they went into practice led to more efficient practices. Now, I know every coach, especially every football coach, is going to say, I can't give you 30 minutes a week. And I respond with, if you give me 30 minutes a week, I'm going to give you 5 days of efficient practice. Does that make sense? Guys, coaches aren't smart when it comes to time. They think that every extra minute is going to add to your advantage. And I always think, no, using your minutes efficiently and effectively is going to lead to your success, right? And coaches that have figured that out and are making those changes are the ones that are more successful. Because I know all of you guys have been to practices that are like, what was the point of this? We didn't grow as a team. We didn't get better today, all the things. So even sometimes we have to give our coaches some guidance of, hey, these are the things that we are going to respond to, and you are going to get more efficient practices from us. Now, I had a team this year that they were so tired of coach yelling at them. And I told coach, I go, if you stop yelling, they'll play better. So I stopped yelling. And then I went back to him, I go, so if you knew that this was going to work, why didn't you do it before? And he goes, because I'm worried they're not going to turn into good men. I go, oh. So I went sat with the baseball team. I go, coach is worried you're not going to turn into good men if he just rolls over for everything. And the boys, and we sat and literally had a conversation of what it meant to be a good man. We talked about they wanted to be good husbands and fathers and all these things. Now I said to them, so when coach comes to you about being a good man and is teaching you things, you better listen or I'm going to unleash the beast. And they're like, we got it, right? But the other thing you can also incorporate, and this is why I love the NEI, is your coaches aren't in this for the dollar bills, guys. They're not. But if you can say, hey, we want this program to build stronger men and women, and we know that you're capable of pouring into us in that light. That's going to be a big selling point because it's true. I could have stayed at D1 easy. And now I never want to have anything to do usually with that level of sport because it's not about building the kids, right? So you're kind of helping them with the roadmap. It's not that they don't want to, they literally don't have the instructions. And you guys are going to probably be their greatest resource. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
100%. Does anybody have questions for Coach Cos with our last 10 to 12 minutes that we have together?
And seriously, guys, this is when it's important. Like when we think about having hard conversations, this is a group you should feel safe to have a hard conversation in because you guys are all managing difficult things. Kennedy, what sport do you play?
Papa.
Dude, it's like all your leadership softball. How did that happen? Because we're just the best ones, right? Kennedy, what is the thing that you are most concerned about when it comes to this upcoming year?
Just like staying healthy enough to help my team.
Okay, so when you say healthy, like illness or injury?
Injury.
Okay, what have your injuries been?
I strained my hamstring recently,
Okay,
so just like missing practice has been hard, I guess.
okay. Kennedy, I'm so glad that I chose you because I think that injury is something that we don't talk about a lot and could be one of the most mentally difficult things. I'm hoping most of you haven't been injured, but I'm guessing that's not the case, right? Injury, honestly, is why I got into the profession I'm in, because nobody warns you the mental struggle that comes with injury, right, Kennedy?
Right.
Because what is it like for you to watch practice?
It's just hard because I want to be out there with my team, but like I have to still be like part of the team and a good teammate from the sidelines.
Yeah. And one of the things I had gotten asked one time by one of my captains is, how do I be a captain when I'm injured? I go, that's a very good question. Because I went through that. I was a team captain my senior year and I was injured. Guys, so much of leadership is not about physically being on the field. Okay. It's being a great teammate, right? It's about paying attention and reaching out to the kids that need that extra hand, right? It's about being supportive of to coach. It's about still using your voice and pouring into your team, even when you feel that you're not relevant because you're not physically physically performing at that time. Okay. So on the flip side, being for you guys that have been injured, you know how lonely it can be, right? Because we feel like we're replaceable. And sadly, we are replaceable. Why? Because there's always going to be a person that has to fill our spot. They're not gonna, that spot is not gonna stay empty until we return. They just have to replace it. And we get to choose if we let injuries destroy us or build us. We get to choose if we're resentful of the kid that is playing why we're hurt, or we get to go be their champion, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, you really want your team to be successful. But too often we get wrapped up in what's happening with us instead of how can I be supportive of our team to make them successful? And here's the other thing, guys. When we're going through depression or anxiety, one of the best remedies is to put our focus supporting somebody else. Okay. So I always say, like, if you're in a hitting slump or a shooting slump, put your focus on supporting a teammate, because what that does is it stops the loop of anxiety and depression. Okay. It just lets you focus on something else and stay focused on that instead of the failure loop, right? So when you go through those injuries, or you're watching your teammates go through those injuries, make sure that they stay connected, right? Remind yourself that as a leader, you can still have a major impact. I mean, I didn't really play like my last 18 months of my career, and I still was a main part of my team, right? And it's because I chose that I wanted to give everything that I was capable of to my team, even though I physically couldn't go and play on the field again, right? And being aware of the kiddos that are going through that and making sure that they don't feel totally ostracized and alone. Sometimes you need to pull them along and say, hey, this is what you can get from going to practice. Learn as much as you can, right? Be connected to the team. Even though you can't be on the field, listen to everything coach does, right? Look for opportunities to help coach and be a part of the everyday, right? Those are things that are really, really important. Okay. Lincoln, I know you're driving. I shouldn't be calling on you. Lincoln, what are you worried about the most this year? I can't call on Lincoln because he's driving. Okay, Emily, I'm gonna pick on you. Emily Till.
Okay. I think one thing I probably struggled with the most are I play basketball.
Okay.
We have like a brand new team this year. I'm like one of the only people returning who ever like received like a decent amount of minutes on the team.
Okay.
We graduated and had a lot of transfers, and it's just really hard like going into a season with like all these unpredictable things.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a new coach too?
Our head coach is the same, but the coaching staff is completely different, like down to our weights coach. Like,
oh, snap. Okay.
oh, like,
right.
like when our head coach is the same, but like we have like 4 new assistants, like not one assistant is back from last year. Which is like another really hard thing for me this year. Cause I loved our assistant coaches. Yeah. And like they all left on good terms. It just seemed like everybody like they just like accepted head coaching jobs everywhere else. And I was like, that is like, I'm like, great for you. But
horrible.
I know. I'm like, I'm really like happy for you. But I'm like, that's so sad. Yeah. Like down to our weights coach. We have a new weights coach this year. Yeah. So I just like feel like a lot of unpredictables in the season.
Yeah, and that is very hard, right? When there's coaching transitions, it's always very, very difficult, right? And the other thing too is you are going to be probably one of the most important parts of this season. So, I don't want to throw pressure on you, but what I'm saying is you get to be the one that is the one grabbing the rest of the players and say, let me show you how. Right? Because if you become the leader that yells at them and says, figure it out, that's going to lead to the divide instead of, hey guys, let me just show you. Right? Or, hey, this is what coach means. Okay. Because I see it. And I just was talking to one of my cheer teams. They're like, well, seniors got power hungry. I'm like, welcome to high school, right? This is the conversation that we're having as power hungry cheerleaders at 1A cheerleading. And I know the girls, I just want to say, because there's so many new girls, I want to say, just show them, right? be courteous and be a mentor to them, right? Because that is going to help a lot of the unpredictables, and it's going to bring down their anxiety. Well, because they're always like, well, Emily will show us, right? Now, that doesn't mean you have to carry all their weight and be their therapist and all that stuff. That does not what that means. It means that, like, on the day-to-day, like, hey guys, this is how we do this drill, or hey, make sure you do these things because coach has these expectations, right? And they'll catch on and they'll start going, right? And it may be frustrating. It's like herding cats for a while. Okay. But you will probably, as I say, your willingness to be a mentor to them is going to be a total game changer in how the structure of the season goes. I hate to tell you, but women's basketball is very emotionally up and down. It's just the nature of your sport. Not really sure why. You probably could say, yes, that is how we are, right? So you're calm in the storm. They're going to look to you. Okay. Now, that being said, you make sure that you are talking to your coach and you have people that can support you. Okay. Okay. Anybody else have big concerns that you're like, holy smokes? Julia, I feel like you're staring into my soul because you're like center box. So Julia, do you have things in your team that you're concerned, or like things that you're concerned for the year?
I would say probably just that. I mean, I think that my biggest concern is making like Christ's name known on my team, and just making helping encourage and cultivate an environment where my teammates can love Jesus super purely. But I would just say, like, having endurance throughout the season along with that. And like when we're in the middle of conference, being able to not allow like tiredness or exhaustion to push through.
And what sport are you?
Volleyball.
Okay. And what school are you at?
Spring Arbor University in Michigan.
Okay. Do you like Michigan?
Yeah.
My daughter's looking at Michigan, so that's why I asked. But anyway, so some of you guys go to Christian schools, some of you guys don't go to Christian schools. Okay, so I guess I'm speaking to the Christian School Alliance, because I think that's being in college is a very interesting time, usually when it comes to faith, right? Because half of you went to church because your parents made you go. The other half that goes to church went because you love it. I see a Young Life shirt on Emily, so I'm guessing that you chose to go to Young Life. I am super involved with different FCA organizations. But the thing is I think this comes down to if it's faith, if it's Christian faith, or if it's just pretty much anything, making sure that the foundation of who you are is always front and center. Now, some of you guys, that may be faith. Some of you, it may be your family, right? It's going to look different for all of you. I hope it is not your sport. If the foundation of your life is your sport, please talk to me. I will give you my phone number. Okay. And so the thing is so often we get wrapped up in the sport and all these other things instead of what is the foundation that is going to be underneath me every single day. Okay. And even talking to your teams and coaches and saying, whatever the foundation is for each person, that needs to be the priority and the focus. Because without it, to use the Christian example of you either get to build your house on the rock or the sand, right? What happened to the house on the sand? Julia?
It fell away.
It fell away. What happened to the house on the rock?
Stood strong.
It stood strong. So that's the thing, guys. It's interesting. My kids, I have 2 teenagers, and they will ask me, well, how do bad things happen to good people? The eternal question, right? And they will ask, how do you stay so optimistic, Mom, when bad things, you've had a lot of bad things happen to you? And I guess I look at it as because my foundation is the same every day. That never wavers. Now, the hard thing is in college, you're still trying to figure out sometimes what that foundation is. You are fortunate if you do know what it is, but this is an awesome time to figure that out. Don't be scared to figure out your foundation. Like, grab it and say, I'm going to go find this out. Because I know, I'm actually excited because my first class that I do with our seniors in high school is we do our value sheets. And I put like 200 values in front of them, and they have to get down to their top 5. And I go, guys, you've been living your values based on what your parents' values were for you. So now you're in college, you get to choose them for yourself. I go, and the values you choose for yourself will lead to every decision and choice you make for the rest of your life. Now your values are going to change. My values at 20 are not the same as at 45, 46, right? But the thing is, when we don't live the life that matches our values, we literally feel gross. So a lot of the people that come and sit on my couch, they come because they're not living their value system, right? So, and Sarah, I can send you my value sheet. I had one of my teammates go, Toz, can you send me your value sheet for chapel? And why? Because Emily, she was starting a brand new team. She had, they were in a whole new team that had to learn a whole new coaching staff. And so she wanted them to really get to know them and figure out what motivated them. And so they did that values exercise, right? But that's probably what I'm going to leave you with tonight. It doesn't matter if you're a coach or an AD or Sarah or Chesney or the president of the NEI. If you have a foundation underneath you set on what you believe in and what your values are, the rest of it is so much easier. And I know Sarah is nodding her head going, yes, that is very true. So that's probably what I'm going to leave you with. But Sarah, I will send you, I'll email you the value sheet so you guys could do it for yourself. You can do it with your teams. It would probably be fascinating if your team shared what their values were with each other. It would explain a lot about like the guts of your team and teammates. Okay?
Yeah, that'd be great, Coach Cos, and then I can post it along with the video. So
You bet. So guys, you can always get to me through Sarah. If you need anything at all, even if it's just, I just need to text you and ask a quick question, I got you. Okay? But take care of yourself.
Thank you, Carrie. I put Carrie's email in there. We say Coach Cos. I know she says Carrie on here, but she's Coach Cos, so that's why you're going to see both. Thank you very much for being with us, starting us off for the year for our first Life and Athletics Education series. And lastly, if you would just click the link and take the survey just helps us know if we're hitting the mark, what else that you want to hear throughout the year that's going to strengthen your time and your journey in the NAI. So please don't hesitate to give the good, the bad, the ugly. We appreciate you very much, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you again.
Bye, guys.
We appreciate you.